Stacey, it's great to have you. Were you in the camp of this deal was a distraction for Nvidia? It's better off without it?
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I would have loved to see this close. I think this could have been huge if they could have pulled it off. Now, that being said, I don't think anybody expected it to close. This is one of those things. It was a bold action. I'm actually glad they took it. I don't blame them for trying it at all. But I think the chances were always fairly remote, especially once the regulatory and customer headwinds really started to get going on it.
Right,
but I would love to see that.
ARM is such a unique proposition. John Fort just went through why it's so unique and different, and there's really no other ARM right now. What does NVIDIA do from here? They work on sort of developing that kind of business on its own. Is there anyone else that would be appealing in terms of an M&A target?
Yeah, so remember, ARM is an IP company. They sell IP cores and other things that their customers use to build chips. NVIDIA is already an ARM licensee. They actually, as part of the $2 billion that they paid, some of that was for an architectural license, so they can actually do their own custom ARM designs based on the ARM instruction set. And they're pushing into the data center all by themselves. I actually do personally believe that the impetus for the ARM deal itself was to push broader into the data center, and in particular to help to create a widely adopted, robust ecosystem for ARM in the data center, which is something that is lacking today. Without that, I mean, NVIDIA is going to keep doing what they're doing. They will still build their own ARM chip servers and other things. They will still continue to try to push those in the market. They'll just have to do it alone rather than being able to try to steer where that whole broader ecosystem is going.
Stacey, is there the risk, the chance that SoftBank and to some extent NVIDIA actually destroyed value in ARM here, though? I mean, to me, it was always weird that ARM, this jewel of the UK was floating around from owner to owner when there didn't seem to be any big strategic value add from it being owned by someone else. And meanwhile, you had some of its biggest customers looking at alternatives, right, during this period. Should NVIDIA not treat ARM in the most nonpartisan way? So as ARM comes public, is that potentially a bad thing for them?
Yeah, so when SoftBank bought it, 6 years ago, whenever it was, part of the case there was they were going to massively increase investment to drive growth. They did massively increase the investment. They didn't really drive all that much growth. And the problem was most of the revenues were still smartphones. And I mean, the smartphone market has kind of plateaued since then. Again, NVIDIA was going to push this much more broader into the data center, and they were absolutely going to ramp up the R&D to do that. And NVIDIA, I think, could support that. Part of the issue is, they were all of them out there during this whole process kind of talking about the need for that further investment and how difficult it would be for ARM on their own to do it. ARM on their own is now going to have to do it, so we'll have to see how that works. And your comment on alternatives is also an interesting one. There are other instruction sets. The other one that's been getting a lot more traction, I think, while ARM has been in this sort of purgatory has been RISC-V, which is another open instruction set, which is actually free to use. It's been getting a lot more traction in China and other areas while this overhang has been there. And so you could, I guess, in theory, see a case where ARM standalone is now facing more competition, especially in this instruction set IP area, than maybe they did have before.